something interesting is happening in the world right now. The more information we receive, the less certain we seem to become. News, experts, analysts, influencers. Everyone has opinion about what is happening, what will happen next, and what we should believe. And at some point, you start asking yourself, who do I even trust anymore? But maybe the real question is slightly different. Maybe the question is, have we forgotten how to trust ourselves? Tomorrow, on the 19th, we have a new moon. Astronomically, a new moon simply means the moon is positioned between the Earth and the Sun, and the illuminated side is not visible to us. But in many cultures and traditions, the new moon has long been used as a symbolic moment of reset, a pause point, a moment to reflect, a moment to ask yourself, where am I going next? What do I want to change? What direction am I moving towards? This particular new moon is in Pisces, which in astrology is traditionally associated with intuition, emotional awareness, compassion, and connection. So whether you believe in astrology literally or simply use it as a symbolic language for reflection, the themes themselves are interesting because they point to something very human, our relationships with intuition and emotion. Modern neuroscience actually tells us something surprising. We often think of ourselves as logical creatures who make decisions rationally. But research shows that emotion plays a central role in decision making. Neurologist Antonio Damasio famously studied patients who had damage in the emotional centers of the brain. They could still think logically, they could analyze information, but they struggled to make even simple decisions. Why? Because emotions are not the opposite of logic. They are part of the brain's navigation system. They help us evaluate situation quickly. And that brings me to the next point, intuition. Intuition is often misunderstood as something spooky and mystical. But psychologically, intuition is often rapid pattern recognition. Your brain processes enormous amounts of information every second. Tone of voice, facial expression, behavior patterns, subtle changes in energy or environment. Much of this processing happens below conscious awareness. So sometimes you feel something before you can explain it. You meet someone and something feels slightly off. Or the opposite, something feels right. That feeling is often your brain recognizing patterns from past experience faster than conscious reasoning can explain them. So this brings us to something interesting. When we talk about intuition and emotional awareness, people often assume the lesson is always the same. Open your heart more. But that's not always true. Because for some people, the lesson in life is exactly that. Maybe they've been hurt. Maybe they built emotional walls. Maybe vulnerability feels unsafe. So their growth requires softening. But for others, the lesson is the opposite. Some people give too much. They say yes when they want to say no. They sacrifice their own needs repeatedly. So their growth requires something different. Not opening the heart, but building healthy boundaries. A healthy emotional life exists somewhere between those two. A closed heart leads to isolation. No boundaries leads to exhaustion and self-loss. So the real question becomes, where am I on this spectrum? Do I need to soften or do I need to protect my energy better? Both paths are actually leading toward the same destination, a balanced relationship with love. Connection with without losing yourself. So many people say today the world has become chaotic. But if we look honestly to history, the world has always been messy. There have been always conflicts, power struggles, competing narratives. The difference today is that we are exposed to everything instantly. Information moves faster than our nervous system evolved to process it. And when everything becomes visible at once, it can feel overwhelming. When people become overwhelmed, they often swing to another extreme. They stop trusting anything. They become cynical, suspicious, angry. But that is not wisdom. That is simply another form of fear. Closing your heart completely is not the answer to chaos. Neither is trusting everything blindly. The real challenge is discernment. Zen Buddhism has a beautiful way of describing it. It says it's easy to feel calm and enlightened when you are sitting alone on the top of a quiet mountain. But real practice is learning to remain centered in the middle of life. When things are noisy, when people are unpredictable, when situations are messy. Real peace is not escaping the world. It is learning to stay grounded inside the world. This is why I often repeat something that might sound simple but carries a lot of wisdom. To be healthy person, you should be kind, but you should not always be nice. Nice often means pleasing everyone, avoiding conflict, sacrificing yourself to keep others comfortable. Kindness is different. Kindness can say no. Kindness has boundaries. Kindness tells the truth. Kindness protects itself. So maybe the symbolic message of this new moon is not about becoming more spiritual or perfect. Maybe the invitation is simpler. Just pause, slow down, sit with yourself for a moment. Ask yourself, where in my life am I disconnected from my own intuition? Where do I ignore what I already feel or know? And where do I need to either open my heart or finally protect it better? The world will continue to be noisy. Information will continue to change. Stories will continue to compete. But the more you reconnect with your own internal guidance, the easier it becomes to move through that chaos. Not perfectly, but consciously. And maybe that is the real practice. Learning to trust yourself again. Okay then, you know what to do next. Just let it settle.